Today on Will Bake for Food, I'm going to show you how to make these delicious New York style bagels.
Only food for me. Food, food, food.
Welcome back to Will Bake for Food. Have you ever been watching a movie and they're walking down the streets of Manhattan and all of a sudden you see a bagel shop and you wonder, I wonder what those bagels taste like? Well, today I'm going to show you how you can make those New York style bagels right in your own kitchen. You can find a full list of instructions and a full set of ingredients on my Will Bake for Food blog. Now, let's get started. What I have here is 1.5 cups of warm water that's just out of the tap, not as hot as it can be, but not as, like cool as it is. Just kind of tepid water. So this is 2 1/4 teaspoons of fast acting or rapid rise yeast, and then 1 teaspoon of sugar, just to feed the yeast and let it get started. And I'm gonna whisk it all together. So I have 4 cups of bread flour here, and then 2 teaspoons of salt that we want to put in here. This is kind of my secret ingredient. This is non-diastatic barley malt, okay? Now, you're like, well, what the heck is that, Will? Well, it's basically dehydrated barley malt, which is what you make beer with, things like that. Now that I have that in my dry ingredients, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just whisk this all together. The next thing I have for this dough is honey. Now, a lot of recipes call for sugar, but if you don't use the honey, then you have to use a little bit more water because you need that balance of wet to dry mixture in order to make everything work. So what I'm going to do is put this 2 tablespoons of honey right into here. On your stand mixer with the hook attachment, go ahead and place your bowl there and turn it on. Okay, so our honey's mixed in pretty well, and you just can't see any more honey, right? And then what I want to do here is, you can see how frothy this has become. Okay, so that means our yeast is activated. We're just going to pour this entire bit of liquid into here, okay? And turn it on to for about 8 to 9 minutes, depending on how much moisture is in the air. And I'll show you what it looks like about halfway through. Okay, so we've been going for about 4 minutes, and I just kind of want to show you what it looks like at this point. The glutens have not completely, it's warm, these glutens have not completely built up yet, so it's kind of just tearing apart still. So that's how you can tell you just need a little bit more time, right? So we're going to stick it back in there for about 4 more minutes. Okay, so we've been going for about 8 minutes or so, and I want to show you how much more like elastic this looks now. It's much more elastic and it's not pulling apart, it's stretching much more. Now, this is the part where I like to get my hands dirty a little bit. They're clean, but get them dirty just a little bit and kind of finish off the dough with my hands. So I'm gonna go ahead and just knead this just a little bit here, just to make sure that it doesn't knead anymore, okay? And what I'm doing to knead it, now, if you don't have a mixer, you can totally do this whole process this way, is just fold over and push away from you, fold over and push away from you, like that. And notice I have not dusted this surface at all because you need a little bit of stickiness to help make your dough and your glutens develop a little bit more. So, and you can notice that it's holding like my fingerprints in there, and that's how you kind of know it's good. Now, let's make this into a nice ball here, okay? And then I have pre-greased with just a non-stick cooking spray this bowl here, and I'm gonna put it in, and then I'm gonna flip it over so that the entire the entire dough ball is covered with the oil, and then I'm going to cover it with cling film and stick it in my oven with a light on, which is kind of like a proofing oven because it gets about 85 degrees or so. So it's been about 1.5 hours and my dough has proofed, and I'm going to uncover it here, and the bowl is still warm from the oven. It's kind of funny that it got warm enough in the oven. Anyhow, so you can see the dough is very lofty and the yeast has done its work. Now I'm going to, boom! All right, just deflate it ever so slightly and pull it out onto my surface here. And this is where I like to weigh just solidly, so I kind of know how much to divide by. Mostly what we're gonna do is make these about between 4 1/4 to 4 1/2 ounces per ball of dough here. But I'm just gonna weigh, and it almost always comes out to about 2 pounds and 3 1/2 ounces, and it's kind of crazy how that happens. So anyway, I'm gonna roll it out into a bit of a cylinder like here, and then just kind of cut it in half with my dough scraper. Notice I have not floured anything. You need the tackiness of this surface to actually help you along. Okay, and I've got 1 and 1, 1, 1, and 1, 1. So I almost divided it exactly in half. Can't believe that. So what I'm gonna do is continue to divide here until I get dough balls that are even in size. And like I said, they're about between 4 1/2 and 4 1/4 ounces. Okay, so all of my dough pieces are even now, and you can tell there's some that have like little extra pieces or whatever, but it doesn't matter, because what we're gonna do now is to create them into a little bit of an even ball. So what I'm doing is kind of making a smooth side that's gonna be on the bottom and clumping up the top together, and it's sticky enough that it'll go back together, and turn it over, and just with the palm of your hand and the I guess this is the heel and the palm, right, whatever, between your thumb and your pinky, you're gonna put this down and then just kind of roll it around like that, like so, until you get a solid ball that has almost no seam at the bottom. Okay. Just to keep my dough from drying out, what I'm gonna do after I've gotten half of them done is cover them up with a wet towel, just so that the dough doesn't dry out. And we'll leave them covered up once we form our bagels. What I've done here is I've created a ball so far. Well, that looks nothing like a bagel, Will. Well, I'm gonna show you how we can make them look like a bagel pretty easily. Press down with your dough, and then stick your finger right in the center, break through the elasticity, and then just stretch it evenly with kind of pressure, pulling your fingers apart ever so slightly. Okay, you don't want to rip through the dough, and you want a hole that's pretty big. Okay, so this is what my bagels look like right now, and they look like a little bit holy. But they'll get a little more unholy as they proof a little bit. We're gonna let these rest for about 20 minutes. What I've got here is 6 cups of water in my high-sided pot, and I found this grate at a thrift store, and it fits perfectly in here. Now, if you don't have the opportunity to do this part and steam it, then what I would do is up your water by 2 cups, and you can poach them because they would go in this pot, and you'll be able to poach them and flip them, okay? So, what I've got here is 6 cups of water, and then remember that diastatic, non-diastatic malt powder, there we go, that we had before. I've got 2 tablespoons of that. I'm just gonna sprinkle it over top and let that absorb, and then I've got 1 tablespoon of granulated sugar that I'm going to let that absorb. I'm gonna get this on heat and let it come to a boil, and my oven preheating to 425, and that'll take about 20 minutes, and that's what we need to let these rest before we steam them. So I'll show you that process. We'll be over at the stove. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes, and I'm gonna start this process of poaching / steaming our bagels, because they have to be steamed before they're baked so that they get that nice crunchy edge on the outside. So I have greased this with my vegetable oil spray, and I'm just going to stick this grate down in here. Make sure that you don't touch your fingers because this is boiling water. My pan is about big enough to do 4 at a time. So what I've got now is I'm just taking a spatula, and I'm gonna put the same oil on it, okay? And then gently lift up my bagel and slide this underneath. You gotta grease it so that it'll slip off. And then just place these on your grate above your about 1.5 inches of water here. We're gonna cover these for exactly 2 minutes. All right, so it has been exactly 2 minutes. We're gonna pull our lid off. Oh my God. So I re-greased my spatula here just so I can get it underneath and then put it onto my parchment silicone pat lined. What I discovered in here is because of the grate, you end up having a little bit of stippling on the bottom of your bagels. If you want to cook a little bit of it out, but you'll still have some of the impressions, you can flip these over if you want to. I didn't really mind them. Okay, so now we're gonna let this go for a second, and we have to put our topping on this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I've beat an egg white and 1 tablespoon of water, and I'm just going to brush this liberally with that and go ahead and sprinkle whatever topping you want. I'll leave 1 plain, do 1 with sesame seeds because they get beautiful and golden, and then 1 with cinnamon sugar. And now what I'm going to do is repeat this process with my other half. Okay, so I re-oiled everything before I put my other bagels on, and just so that they don't stick, because it is a tacky dough, and because of the steam and stuff, it will make it stick. So I'm gonna have 3 plain, 3 sesame, and 2 cinnamon sugar. I'll put them on the top, 10 and turn is what I say. Alright, so my bagels are out of the oven, and we're going to put them on this wire right here to cool completely. We found the best way to store them is actually in a paper bag, and that keeps the moisture away from them, and the paper like wicks the moisture up so that they don't get soggy on the outside. But they will stay nice and golden, and if you see here, this one, the hole that we put in there before, remember we stretched that hole pretty far, is now just a little buttonhole. So some people at Tony's work called these unholy. So anyhow, these are our unholy bagels. Thank you so much for watching We'll Bake for Food.
Only food